Imagine winning the biggest title in Formula One, and instead of feeling free, you instantly feel hunted. That's Lando Norris right now. Because the second he became world champion in Abu Dhabi, the story flipped. No more nice underdog. Now it's prove it again. Every slow lap becomes a headline. Every radio message becomes a debate. And the same people who cheered him all year suddenly start asking the brutal question, was 2025 Lando, or was it just the McLaren? And with 2026's regulation reset coming like a storm, this might be the most dangerous moment of his career, right when he's finally on top. So here's what I want to do in this video. Not just repeat Lando won the title. We already know that. I want to talk about what his championship actually revealed about him, why he's proud of the way he did it, and why that exact my way approach could either build a Norris era or get exposed the moment 2026 changes the game, because Lando's title wasn't the typical villain mode championship. He literally stood there and said he's proud he won it his way, clean, fair, without trying to become some fake version of an aggressive champion. And you can laugh at that if you want, but that mindset is exactly what made this story so explosive. He didn't win by turning into Max Verstappen. He won by refusing to. Now think about what that means psychologically. F1 doesn't just test skill, it tests identity. It dares you to abandon who you are, especially when you're under pressure. And Lando basically told the whole paddock, I'm not doing that. That's brave, but it's also risky because now everyone knows the blueprint of how to attack him. Get in his head, paint him as soft, force him into uncomfortable moments, and watch if he betrays his own style. And don't forget how this season actually swung. At one point he is down, proper down, 34 points behind earlier in their year, and instead of collapsing, he flips the switch, upgrades his approach, and drags himself back into the fight with a late season surge that ends with him champion by just 2 points. That's not luck. That's survival. That's a driver rebuilding himself while the world is watching. But here's the part people miss. When a driver wins a title like that, by control, by consistency, by refusing chaos, there's a hidden tax. You don't just defend a number on a points table next year. You defend the story, because the story around Lando is already forming and it's dangerous. One side says he's a new British champion who did it with maturity, not madness. The other side says he won because his car was strong and because he avoided fights. And the reason that debate matters is because the 2026 car is not going to care about your narrative. It's going to demand adaptation. It's going to punish hesitation. It's going to expose weaknesses fast. Let's talk about why. 2026 isn't a normal new season. It's a reset. A completely different set of regulations where the cars and power units change so much that teams are basically stepping into a new sport inside the same sport. The FIA framework talks about big shifts in aerodynamic philosophy and power unit approach, including active aero concepts and major efficiency goals. And what that means for drivers is simple. You can't copy-paste your title-winning habits and expect the same results. So here's the real Norris question for 2026. Can he stay Lando and still become ruthless when the moment demands it? Because in 2025, part of what made him champion was refusing to play the drama game. He kept things calm. He didn't try to win Twitter every weekend. He didn't try to become a monster. He tried to be consistent, to be honest, to keep it clean, and it worked. But 2026 will bring a different type of fight. If the car is trickier, if energy management becomes more complex, if the handling window gets narrower, then races won't just be about pace. They'll be about decisions under stress. And Lando's biggest battle has always been that moment when pressure starts talking louder than logic. And this is where the Verstappen angle stays relevant, even when the season is over, because Max doesn't just race you. He tests you. He forces you to show your real self in public. If you defend too politely, he calls you weak. If you defend aggressively, he calls you reckless. If you say nothing, he calls you scared. That's why beating Max on points is one thing, but beating Max psychologically is another game entirely. And now Lando is walking into 2026 with two enemies that don't even need to coordinate. Max on one side and Oscar Piastri inside his own garage on the other. Because let's be honest, Oscar is not going to calmly accept teammate of the world champion. Not after a year where he was right there, where he had huge moments, where he's close enough in raw speed that every internal battle becomes political. And the more competitive McLaren are, the more intense that becomes. If Lando has even one shaky run early in 2026, the narrative flips overnight. Is Oscar actually the sharper weapon? Did McLaren choose the wrong guy? Is the champion under threat in his own team? And this is why the off-season is actually the most dangerous part of being champion. Because you're not racing, you're absorbing the meaning of what you just did. Lando's words about family and team matter here too, because he keeps framing the title as something shared. Something he wanted to give back to the people who supported him. That sounds wholesome, but it also reveals something. He carries responsibility heavily. And responsibility is beautiful until it becomes weight. Because when a champion stops racing for himself and starts racing to protect everyone else's, happiness, pressure becomes personal. So if you're a rival, what do? You don't just pressure him on track, you pressure the meaning of his success. You say, it wasn't you, it was the car. You say, do it again. You say, show dominance. You say, be like the legends. And suddenly the champion is defending his identity instead of just chasing lap time. That's why I keep coming back to this. Lando's greatest strength and greatest risk might be the same thing. He's proud he didn't change who he is to win. But 2026 might demand evolution, not personality change, evolution. There's a difference. He doesn't need to become a different human. He needs to become a more complete racer in the moments that decide championships, restarts, wheel-to-wheel hesitation, choosing when to be patient and when to be brutal, knowing when clean is smart and when clean becomes passive. And here's the twist nobody wants to admit. The hardest part of being champion isn't winning the title. It's living inside the silence after the confetti settles, when you realize the sport has already moved on, and the next car might not love you the way the last one did. Because what if the 2026 McLaren isn't the class of the field? What if Mercedes nail the reset? What if Ferrari's concept suddenly works? What if Red Bull's project surprises everyone? Under a reset, that's possible. That's why these regulation changes are terrifying. They can take a champion and make him look ordinary in 3 races. And if that happens, Lando's my way philosophy gets tested harder than ever, because it's easy to be calm when you're winning. It's hard to be calm when you're fighting for P6 and everyone is calling your title a fluke. So this is what I think the real 2026 Norris storyline is going to be. And tell me if you agree. It's not can he be fast again. It's can he protect his identity while upgrading his edge? Can he keep the honesty, the fairness, the personality, but add the cold execution that makes rivals stop trying you? Because if he does that, if he keeps the Lando the fans love, but becomes the Lando rivals fear, then 2025 won't be remembered as a cute underdog year. It'll be remembered as the first chapter of something bigger. But if he doesn't, if 2026 gets messy, if the new era hits McLaren wrong, if Oscar starts taking chunks out of him internally, if Max starts doing Max things and the media turns every tiny mistake into a trial, then being proud of winning his way might turn into the most painful sentence in his whole career. Because the sport doesn't reward purity, it rewards adaptation. And that's the cliffhanger we're walking into. A champion who refuses to become a villain, entering a new era that might demand villain-level sharpness. So I want you to tell me in the comments, no fence sitting, do you think Lando C. My way is the start of a new champion identity that F1 hasn't seen in a while? Or do you think 2026 will force him to change whether he likes it or not? And if you enjoyed this kind of deep breakdown, subscribe, because the 2026 build-up is going to be absolute chaos, and the Verstappen Norris Piastri triangle is only just getting started.